I'm Suruti.
And I am Hannah, apparently.
And this is Red-Handed.
Coming to you from the past. Or the future. No, the past.
Definitely not the future. We never manage to pre-record episodes. We usually record them on a Friday and then release them on Wednesday for patrons and then Thursday for everybody else. So this is a minor treat for us because we are about to go on tour. But by the time you're listening to this, the tour has already happened. And hopefully it was a raging success. Yeah. Wild reviews. Yeah. Newspapers go mad.
A Tony Award.
Olivier, etc. Who knows? Maybe they even gave us a Nobel Peace Prize.
At the very least, we deserve a Brit.
I mean, have you seen the people they give that to? And I'm talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. But moving swiftly on. So if you came to the tour, thank you so much. We hope you had a great time. If you didn't, don't worry. Hopefully we'll be on tour again soon, coming to a city near you. I can't say anything more than that. But if you are like, maybe I want some more Red-Handed until you do come to a city near me, you might consider buying the book. Because we bought a book, we wrote a book. You might consider heading on over to Spotify to listen to our brand new Spotify exclusive podcast called Sinister Societies, where we talk about all manner of secretive organizations, clandestine clubs who are up to no good.
Clandestine clubs, good.
Thank you.
They wanted to call it killer clubs and we were like, no, that's stupid. So yeah, head on over to Spotify where we talk about cults who exist in plain sight and our retirement plan and Leah Remini. So hop on over to that. But for now, we're going to hop on over to Thailand.
Yes, we are. Because every year, millions of tourists flock to Thailand for the tropical weather, the beautiful beaches, the thriving nightlife, and for some to indulge in their worst impulses, far, far from home. Many Westerners, no doubt, travel to the Land of Smiles, as it's called, inspired by movies like Alex Garland's The Beach, hoping to find themselves in paradise, cruising along scenic mountainside roads on a scooter before they spend the evening flirting with a pretty French girl in a neon-lit beach bar. The beach from the film The Beach got so destroyed by tourists after that film came out that it's just like an actual fucking hellhole now, which isn't that so sad?
That is really sad.
Really
it's
sad.
It's a good film though. Apart from that weird video game bit, that bit really lost me. But it is a good film. Anything with Tilda Swinton in it, honestly, I'll just devour.
Love me some Tilda. What has she been bad in? Nothing. That's the answer. So obviously others also make their way to Thailand for the famous/infamous full moon parties. And also, of course, the many, many elephant sanctuaries. Don't go to elephant sanctuaries, people. Don't do it.
No.
Just don't do it.
Whatever they say, the elephants are having a bad time.
They are. I just think the basic rule you can tell yourself, and like I feel like most people know this by this point, especially our listeners, but if you are close enough to a wild animal that you can touch it, it's probably abuse.
Yeah.
That's the rule that you need, most likely. And of course, people also go to Thailand for things like psychedelic mushroom milkshakes. Because I've not been to Thailand actually. Well, I spent one night in Bangkok, but which sounds like a terrible, film. But no, I haven't. But I did eat a psychedelic mushroom pizza in Cambodia.
Did you?
I did. And is it a coincidence that it happened the night before I crashed my motorbike and gave myself these scars on my face?
Which are barely noticeable, by the way.
Thank you. I tried very hard to look after them. If anybody would like some top tips on how to avoid scarage,
Jungle Hospital.
Get yourself some scar away padding. Use like the silicone pads that they use on people who have suffered burns. Stick that on, then keep it out the sun. Do not let the sun touch that motherfucker. But anyway, psychedelic mushroom milkshake, I assume, are lots of fun. Psychedelic mushroom pizzas, when you don't know the mushrooms are psychedelic, more problematic, more issuous.
That is quite issuous. Yes. Hallucinogenics terrify me. I've never gone near them. I'll never say never, but like, I know what's in my head. I don't need more of it. I don't need to go in there.
No, fair.
Keep that door firmly shut.
That's fair enough. I'm also quite scared of them, but I would say I had a very funny evening, but it would have been, I would say, 100 times more fun had I been prepared for it.
Consenting.
Instead of just me and my best friend in a hostel room, lying on our individual beds saying, is the room spinning? Yeah, the room's spinning. Why is the room spinning? And then I got on a motorbike the next day and crashed it. Anyway, so obviously people go there for all of these myriad reasons. And I think, much like the stories that I have told many a time on this podcast, Naivety is the word that comes to mind when you think of these kind of travellers. Because I have been one of them, and it is very accurate a word. Because underneath this veneer of paradise, Thailand is quite possibly one of the most dangerous tourist destinations in the world.
But this isn't common knowledge. Whether that's due to the poor news coverage of tourist deaths, police mislabeling countless suspicious deaths as suicides, or because of a conspiracy of silence by Thai authorities in order not to affect the tourist industry, which accounts for a whopping 20% of the nation's GDP.
20%? Wowzers. That's a lot. A percent.
Wowzers trousers. According to the figures released by the British government in the space of just 1 year between 2011 and 2012, 296 British citizens died in Thailand. But the figure is likely much higher than that because a lot of deaths go totally unrecorded by Thai authorities.
I was shocked when we dug that up in the research.
Yeah.
Almost 300 tourists dying in 1 year. And if you think that's bad, it's about to get a lot worse. Because in the 12 months leading up to the 1st of April 2013, so that's between 2012 and 2013, there were 389 British deaths in Thailand. And in the same period leading up to the 1st of April 2014, there were 362 deaths and 267 hospitalizations of British tourists. Also, we're obviously only talking about British tourists here. If we chuck in the Europeans, the Americans, the Canadians, everybody else, my God, what?
Yeah.
Who? I didn't know that Thailand was so death-riddled.
No, I had no idea. I'm actually planning on going to Thailand next year.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Because I've never been. I've only been to Vietnam, which I enjoyed very much. But I went to Vietnam straight after I'd finished my contract in Korea. And I would like a different type of holiday this time. Because that time I just got really, really drunk on the beach all day and then I got stung by a jellyfish. And it was also so hot that like walking from the hotel across the street to the shop, you're pissing with sweat. It was so hot. So hot that my friend who I was there with, we had an argument. I can't remember what it was about. And I don't do this anymore, but I was shouting. I was so furious with her about something. I wonder what it was. Anyway, it was so hot and we were having this argument that I took all of my clothes off, stood in the shower, the freezing shower, and continued to shout at her. Continued to have this argument. She was shouting too, it wasn't just me.
Had someone had a psychedelic pizza by accident?
Maybe that's what it was. A psychedelic dairy sandwich.
A psychedelic banh mi somewhere in Vietnam.
But enough about Vietnam. And back to Thailand. Welcome to Koh Tao, one of the smallest tourist islands of Thailand's Koh Samui archipelago. Koh Tao roughly translates to Turtle Island, but it also has another name, Murder Island.
I mean, I don't know if I should tell the story. It involves some drug use. Let's just say I was in the Philippines, which is known for possibly some type of very casual drug.
Heroin.
I thought it'd be very funny to sit on a balcony all day and stare at a valley and pretend that I was a one-woman tourist board for this village and tell everybody that was there. They all seemed to think it was very funny. But, you know, we were all on heroin. And I'm going to say that Murder Island, I would have vetoed for a tourist name. Don't go with Murder Island. People don't like being murdered.
Famously, no.
Famously.
Do you know what they do love?
What?
Heroin.
Oh, I thought you could say turtles. Call it Turtle Island. Turtle Heroin Island. Heroin Turtle Island. I don't fucking like turtles. Remember, I almost got bitten by that one.
Yeah, Sarisi had Sarisi's so my nemesis is someone trying to sell bottled water on TikTok. But Sarisi's nemesis is a turtle that tried to eat her.
It was honestly outrageous. I'll talk about it on Under the Duvet, which is also where you can find out about Hannah's bottled water fury. Yeah. But yeah, it's not the best name. And honestly, I know I've already said this, but I really didn't know that Thailand had this reputation. Not that Thailand has it, because obviously loads of people go there. That's why so many people are dying there. And like, I wouldn't be scared to go to Thailand. I would love to go to Thailand, particularly the north, like Chiang Rai area. But I always think if you're going to be like, where's dangerous places? I'd say it's places like, I'd be scared to go to like Australia because everything's trying to kill you. Like all of the wildlife is trying to murder you. Or I would say like going to, I'm not going to go to Caracas anytime soon. But I didn't know Koh Tao?
Yeah, well, this is I actually did know about this because many moons ago, we were asked to put together a pitch for a TV series, and the theme was murders abroad, British people dying abroad. So I looked it up then when we were pitching literally years ago.
Oh, yes.
And it cropped up then. So I knew about this specific island, but I had no idea about the entirety of Thailand.
It doesn't take a detective to work out that if you're listening to this podcast, then you're probably a fan of true crime. And if you are, then we'd love to see you at our new CrimeCon UK event launching in Glasgow on Saturday the 10th of September 2022. This one-day event is packed with sessions featuring some of the biggest names in true crime. If you're concerned about attending on your own, you needn't worry. Many of our guests come on their own and have an amazing time meeting and making friends with other true crime fans. CrimeCon UK in Glasgow, partnered by CBS Reality, the expert-led true crime TV channel. To find out more about the event and to buy tickets, go to crimecon.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Chris Hallinger, and I have a brand new podcast, Glittering a Turd, sharing its name with my best-selling book. Catch me chatting to Giovanna Fletcher.
What's fascinating about turds is that each turd, it has an effect, and sometimes multiple turds come together to teach you your biggest learnings.
Listen now wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes out each Tuesday. Search Glittering a Turd.
So, for now, let's go back to 2014. It was a rather eventful year for Thailand because it was on the 22nd of May 2014 that the Royal Thai Armed Forces launched a coup d'etat that overthrew the caretaker government following 6 months of political crisis. And fun little Thai politics fact for you, which we've been having a great time with in the office today. Thailand has had 12 coups since 1932.
That's a lot of coups.
It's a lot of coups.
You'd just be tired, wouldn't you? I would be tired. 12 coups.
12 coups. I suppose, Vietnam was busy being occupied all the time. Vietnam's been occupied 3 or 4 times, I think, not including the Americans. And I guess that Thailand were just cooing.
So yeah, we did have a lot of fun with this. A lot of research fun with this in the office today for one of our red-handed rundowns. Think it's time.
It is. Things haven't been exactly politically chill in Thailand recently either. You might remember there were mass student protests that kicked off last year in 2020, and that was because the Thai king was spending all of his time hanging out in Bavaria while Thailand was being ravaged by COVID. But Bavarian holidays aside, these demonstrations were a long time coming. Essentially, the role of the Thai monarchy in politics has become an increasingly contentious issue. Because many people feel like accusations of speaking out against the royals or disloyalty to the king or whatever has been used to suppress efforts towards a democratic society.
And, many people might be like, oh, is Thailand not a democracy? Well, it has a fun mix of being both a constitutional monarchy and also having a quite powerful military dictatorship just hanging about in the background waiting to do a coup.
Just waiting in the wings.
Exactly. Ready to pounce. And it's a similar situation, I guess, to what we saw in Nepal when we covered the Nepalese royal massacre in 2020. And also what we saw play out last year, so in 2020, in Myanmar. So basically, you have a democratic parliament to an extent, and you also have a military junta that also just turns itself on and off as needed. Good.
It's like an auxiliary, it's like an organ that you don't really need, but sometimes it can digest some stuff.
Yeah, it's like a really insidious version of checks and balances. Mm-hmm. It's just we'll keep you in check to balance out what we want. That's basically a very basic description of what the political situation is. And needless to say that all of these coups and all of this political unrest and etc. that's been going on in Thailand has at various points led to declines in the number of foreign tourists travelling to the country, and this was particularly evident in 2014. But still, there were those who weren't going to let, some news reports of sporadic violence, which, by the way, included shootings, bomb scares, and grenades being thrown at protesters, ruin any of their Mai Tai time. So among these people were 2 young British backpackers travelling to the beautiful beaches of Koh Tao in September of 2014 just a few months after the military coup had come to an end. Now, I'm not judging these people, absolutely not, because I've definitely been to places where it's like, oh, is everything going to be politically okay while I'm there? I don't know. And I have definitely for a long time, I know I said I wouldn't be going to Caracas for a long time, but I've wanted to go to Venezuela for a very, very long time. It looks absolutely stunning, like that big like flat mountain that they've got. I think it's called like Romaine Mountain or something. Stunning. So yeah, basically by late 2014, after the coup had happened, tourists were definitely starting to come back. I guess maybe they thought that all of the political stuff was going on in Bangkok and that Turtle Heroin Island would be fine. And two of these, such tourists, were Brits, David Miller and Hannah Witheridge.
Hannah Witheridge was just 23 years old. She was a speech and language therapy graduate from Great Yarmouth. She'd just graduated from the University of Essex and was planning to get her master's degree after a much-needed summer holiday. David Miller was a 24-year-old civil and structural engineering graduate from Jersey, which is one of the UK's Channel Islands, and because it's basically France, you cannot vote in UK elections if you live on Jersey. And David had just finished his placement at a mining company in Australia, and like Hannah, he had decided he needed a break from the stress of work, and he went to Thailand for the summer. Neither of them knew each other before arriving in Koh Tao on the morning of the 12th of September. But they quickly hit it off after meeting at the Ocean View bungalows, where they were both staying with friends.
The two groups hit it off straight away and spent the following couple of days exploring the small 8-mile-long island together, going diving, hiking, renting bikes, and just generally lounging around on the popular Sari beach. Then, on the 14th of September, the group decided to go for dinner and then some drinks. CCTV footage from that evening shows Hannah and her friends making their way to a place called Chopper's Bar, just 200 metres from the Ocean View bungalows in which they were staying. Then it shows them being joined by David and his friends. After this, at around midnight, David left his friends behind and was seen with Hannah and her friends making their way to the AC bar next door, the only bar that stayed open late. They had a few more drinks, a little dance, and then at around 1 a.m, Hannah and David decided to call it a night. They said goodbye to their friends and made their way back to the Ocean View bungalows. This would be the last time anyone would ever see them alive again.
A few hours later, at around 5 a.m, their partially naked, bloodied and battered bodies were found on the Sari beach by a hotel worker. David and Hannah were discovered laying just metres apart and only about 100 metres from the Ocean View bungalows. Nobody knows everything that really happened in the few hours between the pair leaving the bar and their bodies being found. But this is what we do know. Deep lacerations on David's head showed signs of blunt force trauma, but the autopsy found water in his lungs, making it clear that he'd actually been drowned. Hannah had suffered a similar fate, but she'd also been raped, which was evident from tearing on her vulva, bruising on her perineum, and a bite mark on her right nipple.
Violent attacks on women in Thailand are tragically so commonplace that the UK Foreign Office actually have the following statement on their official UK government website under travel advice for Thailand. And this is what it says. And this is verbatim.
It's shocking.
It really is. Like, Hannah and I both have been very lucky enough to travel quite a bit in our lives. And I do check the UK foreign advice, like, before I will go, especially if it is a bit more of like a politically like fractious country. I have never seen anything like this. And this is what it says. Violent sexual assaults and unprovoked attacks have been reported in popular tourist destinations, including in the Koh Samui archipelago and Krabi province. These are particularly common during the monthly full moon parties and generally occur late at night near bars. That's very specific.
Yes. I've never ever seen anything like it.
And prevalent enough that they have spelled it out. Usually it'll just be like, there is political issues there, there's risk of, pickpocket or kidnapping or, extortion. I've never seen anything this specific.
No, I haven't either.
No. So the crime scene where David and Hannah were both found was littered with evidence. There were their bloody clothes. There was also blood-stained murder weapons, including a garden hoe and a wooden club. And there was also 3 cigarette butts, and a used condom found laying nearby. At the time, there were only 6 police officers stationed on the island of Koh Tao. I know that sounds like a very small amount, and probably maybe it is given the number of tourists that frequent there, but it is a very small island.
It's tiny, yeah, it's the smallest.
8 miles long. That's nothing.
No. So there's police every 2 miles.
And so these 6 police officers, basically, I guess they can only do what they can do, and they're essentially waiting for more police officers to arrive from the mainland.
Local residents were so horrified that they actually took it upon themselves to block the piers around Koh Tao, hoping to prevent the unknown killers from escaping its shores. But as you can imagine, with so few police hanging around and so many local people and tourists getting involved, the crime scene was not handled well. It would actually be hard for it to be handled worse. The only thing that could make it worse is if the local people started to give tours of it like Hinterkaifeck.
Yes, or like in the case of the murder of Jodie Jones, the police just come along and bleach it.
Right, yes, of course. Yeah, it's bad stuff. The people were just allowed to walk all over the badly cordoned off crime scene, totally compromising any forensic evidence that might have been there. Many onlookers even took photos of Hannah and David's body and posted them on social media sites. That is sick. I can't remember where I saw this. Oh, it was on the radio. So I was listening to Radio 4 because I'm elderly. And they do this thing on a Sunday evening that's like a wrap-up of all of the shows for the week. And one of them was like a profile of this paparazzo guy, paparazzo, I suppose, who has had more covers than any other photographer. And he was a horrible, horrible man. And he was like, oh, like Fern Britton's jumping off a pier or something today, so I'm going to go find her. I haven't seen Fern for ages. Like really nasty stuff. And he would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his job.
Oh, of course. Did you ever watch the film Nightcrawler?
No.
Oh. I would thoroughly recommend.
Okay.
It's Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
Take this to the top of your list.
Even Silent Hill.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Silent Hill is just like, it's like Event Horizon. It's like a guilty pleasure. I wouldn't sit here and pretend to you that it's a good film.
Okay.
Nightcrawler is a fantastic film. It's Jake Gyllenhaal being a stone cold fucking psychopath, which I love. And it is also Riz Ahmed, who I love. And he is fantastic. They are both fantastic in it. And it's basically Jake Gyllenhaal plays a guy who's like goes to crime scenes or goes to like accidents or goes to places like where horrible shit has happened and films it and then sells the footage to news channels. And then it's basically, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's basically he's like, well, maybe if I just started like making stuff happen.
Oh.
It's really good.
Okay.
It's excellent. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, this is sick. This is sick.
And what's even worse is David and Hannah's families ended up seeing those images the same day that they were told that their family had been killed in a horrible murder miles and miles and miles and miles and miles away from home.
Fuck me.
And some of these photos, not only can you see the dead bodies of David and Hannah who were killed very violently, some of the pictures show people sunbathing sort of right next to them near the bloodstained sand.
What the fuck?
We can't let it get in the way of your holiday.
What the fuck is wrong with people? Because I don't even know what to say, because it's like, imagine you are a foreign tourist in a country where 2 other foreign tourists have been horribly murdered and raped, and then you're just going to go lie and sunbathe on a beach next to where their bodies are, where there's still blood staining the sand.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
I mean, I know it's a small island, but maybe not.
Yeah, right. I don't
even know why I'm trying to understand these people, but it's like I'm so fucking horrified by this.
I would leave.
Casual. Yeah, you would leave. Eventually, more officers did arrive on the island, and they began taking DNA samples from the garden hoe and the wooden club that were found near Hannah and David's bodies, also from the cigarette butts and also from the bodies themselves. But it is very, very important to note that these officers who were doing this DNA collection were just normal officers. They were not trained forensic experts by any measure. These samples were then sent off for forensic analysis, and David and Hannah's bodies were taken away that evening. Now, one of the many criticisms that the Thai authorities faced in their, frankly, shambolic investigation was their failure to properly analyse forensic evidence. For example, although they did analyse the DNA that was found on Hannah's body, they never tested any DNA from either David or Hannah's clothing. Nor were there any competent forensic experts ever consulted. This isn't new. We've seen this all over the world, time and time again. Like, immediately you and I have named cases from opposite ends of the world where this kind of thing has been seen. But it still doesn't cease to amaze me.
No.
And news of the brutal murders obviously travelled around the world and threatened severely the reputation of Thailand's tourist industry, which had already taken a blow following the military coup. I think, like us, like many people maybe don't realise, and I'm not telling people not to go to Thailand, of course not, but it's like, I think people just didn't know. But if you have a horrible case like this happen, and they are, let's be real, white, British, young people, that's going to make news everywhere and people are going to be scared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing we white people love more than hysteria. But that aside, the Thai politicians didn't exactly help their cause either. Junta Chief General Priyuth Chan-o-cha thought it would be a good idea to blame the murders on the victims themselves. Classic.
Oh, goody.
Classic move. He said, "Will tourists survive in Thailand if they dress in bikinis?" And then he went on to say that people would survive, tourists would survive, if they were not attractive.
Oh, good.
Well, I'm glad it's not just our politicians.
Oh, good. So as long as I look really ugly in a bikini, then I'll be fine.
Needless to say, this statement did absolutely nothing but enrage people across the world and also in Thailand itself. So, likely due to a political advisor whispering in his ear, Prayuth made a follow-up statement that included the words, "Sometimes I speak too strongly, not I'm wrong, or I take back what I said."
I'm just too passionate sometimes.
During this Bikini Wars, the forensic analysis indicated that the unknown DNA at the crime scene was from somebody of Asian descent. Hearing this, Junta Chief wasted no time in placing the blame on the growing population of Burmese workers in Thailand, stating, quote, "We have to help take care of our nation and not let no good people mingle with us, such as unregistered alien workers." He also added that a Thai person would never have committed the murder. You see this so often. I'm going to say it's more prevalent in the developing world than it is in the West. I think the phrase like, "Oh, a British person would never do this." We don't say stuff like that.
No. I actually don't think it is that prevalent here. I think it is more actually prevalent. I think, yes, more prevalent in the developing world is what we've seen with cases like this. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think in the Western world, we often look at other countries like Asian countries or whatever, or even, Latin American countries as everybody being quite monolithic, which is obviously not the case. Like we throw around terms like Asian or, Latinx or Hispanic. Those people are not monolithic.
No.
Like we've got a lot of fucking beef amongst each other, believe me. Yeah, I think that's why we have seen this crop up time and time again in cases like this, for sure. And this guy's just really hitting all the bingo markers, isn't he?
Yeah.
Blame the victims. Oh, people didn't like that? Okay, let's blame some other migrants.
Yeah. It's always the migrants.
And indeed, the police investigating the murders seem to agree with this junta chief because they had already started going down this path. They'd even started doing DNA testing specifically on every single Burmese worker in and around the Sari Beach area to see if they were a match for the DNA found at the scene. So not just testing all of the men on the island, they're just testing all of the Burmese workers.
Yeah, because famously, Thai DNA is not of Asian descent.
Precisely. So 2 separate unknown DNA profiles were actually found on the cigarette butts found near the bodies and matched with those found in both the condom and on Hannah's body. So the cigarettes are definitely related to the crime because all of the DNA matches, and there are 2 full profiles. However, the DNA results showed that the semen in the condom wasn't a match for David Miller and his friends or the 6 other workers from Myanmar who were being held as suspects because they were drinking near Sari Beach that night. So police have got a very small pool of suspects.
Yeah.
They can eliminate it being David's semen. So, yes, we know further evidence probably that Hannah was obviously raped. And it's not any of these random workers from Myanmar that they've just sort of rounded up. So the police found themselves under immense pressure from the media and Thai politicians to solve this case. This is the kind of case that is going to rapidly blow up in your face if you do not clear it quickly. And now, after failing to find a suspect who matched the DNA, the only lead that the police had was some grainy CCTV footage of 3 Burmese men on a motorcycle near the Sari beach on the night in question.
The men were carrying a guitar, and they were headed to a 7-Eleven store to buy beers and cigarettes before going to the beach. The images then showed one of these men running frantically into a nearby alleyway. Officers identified one of these men as Mau Mau, a Burmese worker who lived near the beach. They brought Mau Mau in for questioning, but when they learned that he was working in Thailand legally, they released him without any further questions.
So there is like nothing else that clears Mau Mau. They're just like, oh, he's here legally, so like, fuck it.
It can't possibly be him.
Yeah, we'll just leave it.
But before he left, Mau Mau identified the other 2 men that he had been with that night in the CCTV footage. One of these men was 22-year-old Zaw Lin, another migrant worker from Myanmar. And the second the police found out that he had been working illegally, they arrested him for breaching the terms of his visa and seized his clothing and motorcycle as evidence.
The second man was 22-year-old YPO, also an illegal migrant from Myanmar. Zaw Lin and YPO were both interrogated for hours, during which the police used Burmese street food vendors as translators because neither of the men spoke Thai. I understand like they have to do this, but I'm like, there's a lot of like degrees of removal from the conversation that is happening, which is obviously making this even more problematic as a police interrogation.
Yeah.
After these hours of interrogation, both men, so Zaw Lin and YPO, both make full confessions to the killings. They said that they had been driven to it after becoming sexually aroused watching Hannah and David kissing on the beach. Neither of these young men had any record of any sort of criminal history, not even so much as like petty theft. But here they were making a confession, and it seemed like case closed.
Miraculously, the Thai police seemed to have solved the case, which had the potential to have spiraled into a catastrophically high-profile situation on the global stage, no less. And they'd cracked the case in 2 weeks, which is pretty incredible. But that was until Lin and Pio were granted legal counsel, something which they had not been granted until after their confessions, of course.
That's the right way to do it.
Nothing wrong with that order. And once the 2 men had spoken to a lawyer from the Burmese embassy, the 2 retracted their confessions and claimed that they had been tortured in custody by being beaten, stripped naked, and left in a freezing cold room. There were also mentions of the men having been sexually assaulted, and that was followed by threats of electrocution and even death unless they confessed. I know this sounds terrifying, and my brain should not be going in the direction it's going, but it's too late now. I know Thai prison is probably horrible, but all my mind can see is Bridget Jones singing like a virgin.
Oh, yes.
That's literally that's all I'm working with here.
To be honest, I think unless you are ever in Thailand and caught up in some sort of horrible situation, just leave that image there. I think that's all you need.
Great. I've served my purpose.
We've got enough horrible images in our heads.
Yes. But these men are certainly not singing like a virgin. They were actually claiming they were told if they did confess, then they would only have to do 2 years in prison, which was quite obviously a lie.
The story that the men are telling at this stage, again, it's so reminiscent of what we've seen time and time again. These forced confessions, false confessions, whatever it might be, hours of interrogation, vulnerable, suspects. I'm not saying they didn't do it, but I'm saying is we don't know what happened. And the claims that these men are making are quite consistent with what we've seen in cases of false confessions across the world. So, of course, the National Police Chief denied all of these allegations. And when Thailand's National Human Rights Commission attempted to look into these claims, police representatives failed to show up not once, but to 4 scheduled meetings. Seems suspect. And in the lead up to the trial, the police only granted the defence team a mere half an hour to speak with their clients, Lin and Pio, to prepare. Half an hour for murder trials?
Right.
That is unbelievable.
In a country that has the death penalty.
Yes. So meanwhile, the prosecution had put together a 900-page report that under Thai law, the defence team weren't allowed to read until the day the trial began. And this is in stark contrast to much of the rest of the world, where as soon as charges are brought against a defendant, the defence has access to all of the evidence, including witness statements, physical exhibits, and expert testimony. This is, of course, vital because it allows lawyers to take instruction from their clients and call their own experts to refute any testimony relied upon by the prosecution. But obviously, if you're only getting it that day, there's not a whole lot you can do with that.
No, not in half an hour.
No. So it's basically the prosecution can put together however many fucking documents they want, experts they want, and you just have to turn up on the day and be like, no, I didn't do it. I definitely didn't do it. It's shocking. It's very stacked against the defence, obviously. And we just can't keep the Met out of it.
Yeah, they can't leave it alone.
No, because we're not making this next bit up. We're not just, dragging the Met for no reason. Who, interestingly, you guys might find this interesting, actually. A few months ago, after we had been pretty savage about the Met, but purely on Under the Duvet, so I was behind a paywall and behind their backs.
Where no one can find me.
Exactly. We got an email from the London Metropolitan Police. And I was like, oh my God, what are they going to say? Are they going to put us in jail? And then it was from their PR and comms team.
Oh God, I'd forgotten about this.
Yeah, their PR and comms team. Because I could see you looking at me blankly about what they had said. And they basically were like, hi, love the podcast. Would you like to have a detective on? Oh, no, it wasn't a detective, a family liaison officer on the podcast and interview them about all the great work that we're doing being family liaison people. And we were so wanted to immediately reply and be like, no, go fuck yourselves. Because if you haven't seen, the London Metropolitan Police have not been painting themselves in any sort of glory recently. For more information on that, please come listen to Under the Duvet for all patrons now. And then we were like, no, let's just wait. Let's think about what we're going to reply. And then we did reply. The reason that we had been savaging the Met in the week leading up to this email was because if you guys cast your mind back, particularly if you're British, you might remember that in April 2021, there was a real tragic case of the teenager who had sickle cell, who happened to be a young black teenager called Richard Okorahe, who went missing from his house somewhere in London, and he turned up in a pond or a lake in Epping Forest, but it was like miles away from his home. And when he had gone missing, his mother had called the London Metropolitan Police and reported her son missing. Richard was not just a teenager, but he was also incredibly vulnerable. Like I said, he had sickle cell anemia, which is a fucking devastating condition. And also it was during the fucking pandemic, and Richard had spent the last year sheltering, not going anywhere but to hospital appointments. So the fact that he was missing during a pandemic, his mum was rightfully worried. The London Metropolitan Police officer that she spoke to said to her, and this is a quote, "If you don't know where your son is, how do you think we would?" And so we replied to the London Metropolitan Police email saying, we would love to have your family liaison police person on the show if they will talk to us about why Richard Okorahe's mum got that response from the London Metropolitan Police. We never heard from them again.
No, they disappeared from the inbox as quickly as they arrived. And it was just such a transparent ploy of just get a better comms team.
Yeah, I mean, the email was cringeworthy. And I was like, they should have taken that opportunity. They should have been like, yes, we will put somebody on your podcast and you can ask them that question and they can answer it. But they didn't.
No.
So whatever. So back to why the British Metropolitan Police are involved in this. Just in case you don't know what the British Met are, the Metropolitan Police are the police force that police London, essentially. So they're the biggest police force in the UK. They, in fact, conducted their own independent inquiry into the Thai police's investigation of Hannah and David's murders, but rejected requests for the report from Lynn and Pio's defence team. So even the London Metropolitan Police refused to give these defendants access to the case that was built against them. And the Met are obviously involved because Hannah and David were British. Mm-hmm. And they're like, nah, cool.
The Met Police actually opposed the application, and their argument was that disclosure would impede the Metropolitan Police Force's ability to enter into cooperation agreements with foreign authorities in the future. And the judge ruled that the interest of the police outweighed the interests of the subjects. Which, is that the right way round?
I mean, they're just basically like, well, if we do this, no one will ever work with us again. Well, of course they fucking will. Of course they're going to have to work with you. They're not going to be able to not work with you, especially if it's British people who have been murdered abroad. And again, we bang on This country, this government, the Metropolitan Police love to bang on about British values. Do we not? They're not things I disagree with. I think they're arbitrary, but it's not things I disagree with. But if we're going to say that things like a fair trial, etc., fair access to justice, I'm not saying we get that in this country, but if we're going to say that those things are British values, then it seems very contradictory to me that the British Met would say, no, we won't give you access to these things that would give you a fair trial because we don't want to piss off the Thai police or the Thai authority.
Exactly.
That's not very British valuesy of you.
So, Zhao Lin and Wai Pio were formally indicted on 5 charges in December 2014 for premeditated murder, rape, killing to conceal the rape, illegally entering Thailand, and staying without permission. And just for luck, they threw in the charge of having stolen David Miller's phone, because why not?
Why the fuck not?
The actual trial itself began the following year on the 8th of July 2015, with each sitting of the 18-day trial lasting over 10 hours. As someone who is imminently about to serve on a jury, that sounds so fucking boring. I know it's a murder trial. 10 hours. I can't sit down for 10 hours.
No, but again, it's like the tactic that is actually used in the West as well. Like, you'll sometimes hear about it in like procedurals and like courtroom dramas, where they'll be like, the best way is to bore the jury to death. It's to make the days I'm sorry, as somebody I'm talking to somebody who's about to go on imminent jury duty, is to make it so fucking boring and so long and tedious that people just give up, and they're just like, I forget which way people tend to rule if they've given up. Maybe it's just like they don't challenge it as much, they go with their first instinct.
Yeah, I think you're more likely to, because what Scott Watson said at his trial, he thinks he was found guilty because the trial was so long the jury couldn't remember the evidence that had been submitted, which I think was probably...
Classic tactics, though.
Yes, yeah, so can't fucking wait.
And she's at the Old Bailey too.
Yeah, like the highest court in the land.
Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, there are no kind of direct remarks that we can sort of tell you about available from the trial itself, because the judges, guess what? They banned anybody from taking notes, which seems highly irregular. I don't know if that is standard practice in Thailand, but that seems highly irregular to me, that you would have any court in any country that doesn't have somebody taking notes about what is being said. And this is something that has been condemned by the Solicitors International Human Rights Group, rightly fucking so. The prosecution based much of its case mainly on the DNA evidence, which they claimed was a perfect match for Lin and Pio. Their version of events went as follows. They said that Lin and Pio beat David Miller with the garden hoe before using it to knock Hannah unconscious, and then they took it in turns raping her before killing her with the same hoe. The defense argued that the entire investigation was full of misconduct and flaws, from the mishandling of forensic evidence, the fact that neither Lin or Pio had been granted any sort of legal counsel during their interrogations, during which they claim they were coerced into making their confessions, and also accusations that the police had intimidated witnesses into making statements. The police also claimed that they had found David Miller's phone in Zhao Ling's bedroom, like we said. But this was later proven to be untrue. So why they even bother making that up? Well, I guess we do know, because it's like another thing to connect them to the crime. But like, it's total nonsense. They can't prove it when it comes to the trial. The defense also made the case that Lin and Pio's statuses as illegal migrant workers made them the perfect scapegoats for the police to pin the murders on. Now, I'm not saying just because they are illegal migrant workers, they couldn't possibly have done it. But obviously, as we have seen step by step by step, all of the reasons why they were even investigated or chosen or looked into, the shoddy evidence, the mishandling of police evidence, the mishandling of forensics, it's not exactly a fucking airtight case.
No. The only reason that they were even put in the frame in the first place is because they were there illegally.
Yeah, because they were on CCTV seen near the area. That's the only thing connecting them to it, as far as this investigation tells us.
So here is what the defence had to say. Their version of events from the night in question went like this. Lin, Pio and Mau Mau had gone swimming at the beach earlier that night, but their clothes had been stolen from the beach. Then they made their way to Mau Mau's house, where they were seen on CCTV. When Pio was arrested, it was a little bit suspicious because he was found on a boat trying to leave Koh Tao, so it looked like he was hiding or escaping or whatever. But actually, he was on a boat because he'd got a different job in the city of Surat Thani in southern Thailand, so he was just leaving.
And also, by the time they get to Zhao Lin and Pio, it's been like 2 weeks since the murder had happened. So why would they have hung around for 2 weeks on this island if they had killed Hannah and David? Why wouldn't they have left sooner?
That's a good point. I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, he only leaves after he gets this job. When he's leaving, they catch him and they're like, oh, look how suspicious it is. But it's like, he'd been there for the whole 2 weeks.
On the second day of the trial, the court ordered the DNA from the crime scene to be retested. But funnily enough, the police said that that was impossible because all the DNA they had from the crime scene had been used up. I don't really know what that means.
It means they did a terrible job.
But they didn't have the crime scene DNA. But they did have the murder weapons still that had some DNA kicking around on it that could be used. And after testing this DNA, the head of Thailand's Central Institute of Forensic Science found that the DNA on the hoe, the murder implement, was not a match for the defendants.
So this is obviously like in the reanalysis, and it's been done by, as Hannah said, the Central Institute for Forensic Science. But the original report of the DNA analysis provided by the police to the court had never actually been independently verified. And it was a mere 1-page summary for a double homicide with 4 supporting pages, and large sections of it were just handwritten.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thorough. Seems legit. Also, it just gets worse and worse in terms of the police investigation. Shortly after the men had confessed, the police had forced Zhao Lin and YPO to take part in a rather grim reenactment of the killings at the crime scene in front of hordes of news cameras. What do we think might be the issue with people who might become jurors and the rest of the world seeing these 2 men reenacting committing a crime?
I cannot. I refuse to can.
I mean,
like, it
fucking
just
hell.
awful.
What was the point of that?
I don't know.
And it's like the Reykjavik case that we did a year ago. January. It was in January. I think it might be the first case of 2021.
I think you're correct, yes.
In that, the same thing happens where the police force these people to reenact a crime. And in that case, what we saw is how suggestible people are, because once these people were made to reenact a crime, they started to believe that they had done it because they were remembering the reenactment. This is just so fucking awful. This is terrible. But despite all of these many issues that we've just listed to you, and the fact that multiple CCTV cameras near the beach weren't actually working, and the fact that the police hadn't even checked all of them, and the accusations of torture and coercion during interrogations, the court found Zhao Lin and YPO guilty of murdering Hannah Witheridge and David Miller. And by the way, I know I said earlier, like, should they be doing these reenactments in front of people who might eventually become jurors? Well, I was wrong, because the trial actually didn't have a jury. The verdict was decided upon by 3 judges who presided over the case, and all 3 agreed the defendants were to be sentenced to death on the 24th of December 2015. Always go for a jury trial, if you have the choice. Never go for a bench trial. Always go for jury. I know there's more people to convince, but you can convince them better than you can just convince a judge.
Yes.
Yes.
Fully.
It's always jury. Especially not three fucking judges.
Lin and Pio's defence team appealed this decision in 2019, but the Supreme Court upheld the decision, claiming that the police had handled the case correctly and that forensic evidence was clear, credible, and detailed, even though it was clearly the actual opposite of literally every single one of those things. There was uproar, both domestically and even internationally, about this verdict. Nobody was buying the police's version of events. The scepticism was so widespread that the police resorted to threatening to prosecute anybody who challenged their conclusions. The nation's police chief even had the gall, the audacity, the gumption to describe the work of the investigators as, quote, a perfect job.
And look, we're not here to fucking just shit all over Thailand, because we do plenty of this with the London Metropolitan Police.
Yes.
We can't sit here and pretend like this exact same thing isn't fucking happening here. Cressida Dick is all over everyone's dick, being a massive dick all the fucking time. This is exactly the kind of thing I could imagine her saying. This exactly.
Oh, completely.
And it just, because I know not all of you are obviously patrons, which Hello, you should be. But we have talked at length over on Under the Duvet about the murder of Sarah Everard and the way in which the London Metropolitan Police have responded to her murder, just in case you didn't know, by a London Metropolitan Police officer named Wayne Couzens. I was at a traffic light today and I went to press the button and there was a sticker there and it said something, someone had handwritten it and it said something Wayne Couzens is, and then someone had torn it off. I really wish I could have read what it said.
Oh, yeah.
I know, bummer. It was probably Cressida Dick. Cressida Dick, in case you don't know, is the head of the London Metropolitan Police. So anyway, basically, I'm not going to bang on about this because we do enough of that over on Patreon. But basically, she said, if you are a woman who's being arrested by a lone male police officer and you suspect them, because that's what happened to Sarah Everard, and she ended up raped and murdered by this man, to flag down a bus to save yourself. Not even kidding you.
No, even our police correspondent, PC Excellent, has had enough of Cressida Dick.
Yep. So this, this just typical stuff. We see it everywhere. But what specifically do we think is going on here in Koh Tao on these islands of Thailand? Well, aside from the obvious scenario that we often see in such cases like we just talked about, where the police will scapegoat an easy target in order to close a high-profile case that is dragging, there is another element worth discussing here. It's known that a single powerful family holds a monopoly on the hospitality businesses on the island of Koh Tao, and their word is essentially law in the area. They allegedly dictate everything from who gets to sell pineapples on the beach to things like sex work and human trafficking. They've got their finger in every pie, in every holiday pie that's out there. And basically, they're like the Thai mafia. You've got a crime family that's running the show. And they've obviously got a lot to lose if people stop coming to Koh Tao because people keep getting murdered there.
Right, yeah, because they are the tourism industry on the island.
Exactly. They don't like that. That's bad news bears for their industry. So definitely, I think that we can't pretend like this isn't playing a role in it, I think. Also, what's interesting to say is it's also widely reported, and Hannah and I have been reading about this, that islands like Koh Tao used to be like penal colonies for political prisoners. So the islands kind of were a bit separate for a very long time from mainland Thailand, which means that when it ended, I think it was in the 40s that they stopped doing that, stopped allowing these islands to just be penal colonies. There was a power vacuum that's created when you remove that kind of institution that's existed there for a long time. And it's also reported in places that we read that these islands can therefore feel a bit disconnected from the mainland. And so in that power vacuum, you have crime families pop up who now run the show there. And there's a lot of speculation that the police, who are probably in the pocket of these Thai mafias...
Well, you would have to be, otherwise there wouldn't be a mafia.
Well, exactly. Fair point. And it's been basically widely speculated that the police were pinning the murders on these two men as easy scapegoats, not only in order to clear the case that they were under pressure for, but also as a way to protect the Thai mafia and their business interests.
Following the guilty verdict, tourists from the mainland apparently began to return to Koh Tao in droves, which was good news for the hospitality businesses, which means it was good news for this powerful crime family.
And another reason it's better to say that it is foreigners and not Thai people, because then you know who you need to be wary of or something. It's not the people here, it's these others. So don't worry about it. You can still come on holiday here.
Yeah. Just stay away from the Burmese migrants. Speaking of Burmese migrants, Zhao Lin and Wai Pyo were sentenced to death based on literally nothing apart from the CCTV footage of them standing outside a 7-Eleven and unsubstantiated DNA evidence that was apparently a match for the DNA found on Hannah Witheridge's body. But I don't think we can put much stock in that at all because it's been used up, it's disappeared, it can't be retested, we don't know. Their cases were finally reviewed in 2020. To commemorate the King of Thailand's birthday and in order to show his clemency. Weird flex.
Yeah, but sure. Why not?
Especially in 2020 when he's really not very popular at all. I mean, that's probably why they did it.
Yeah, this is the thing. I don't know. Maybe this case did definitely get a lot of domestic and international uproar, like you said. A lot of people in Thailand definitely felt this wasn't a fair case. This wasn't the way it was meant to be handled. And so maybe, it's just oh, look, I know I'm in Bavaria, but clemency, whatever. What? People are fucking COVID, mate. They're over it by this point. At this point, like Hannah said, in 2020, the pair did actually have their death sentences commuted to life in prison. But to this day, YPO and Zhao Lin maintain their innocence. However, Koh Tao's reputation as Murder Island has only been further cemented since this incident in 2014. Because the following year, in 2015, a Frenchman named Dimitri Pops, who was just 29, was found hanged with his hands tied behind his back. But the police ruled it a suicide.
Doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, it's like the Rebecca Zahau case.
Exactly. Yeah. God, blast from the past.
I know.
It's like episode 4 or some shit.
I know, Spreckles Mansion. So then, after this happened in 2015, in 2017, a Russian woman named Valentina Novishkainova, who was just 23, disappeared with her diving gear. And the police quickly concluded that she had just drowned at sea. Cool, you don't maybe want to have a look? Don't worry about it.
Just have a little nosy around.
Just there's too many people dying. And, you know, I can probably also say I'm sure that on this island they seem very understaffed police-wise. But maybe have more when there's just like 300 to 400 just Brits dying every single year. That seems scary. And obviously, so I'm certain that a high proportion of those deaths are drunk people drowning.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
It'll
not
be
just
drunk people drowning, drunk people falling off balconies, drunk people just getting too drunk and dying of alcohol poisoning.
Although it's called Murder Island, we're not suggesting that 400 Brits are being murdered a year. Right. Most of them are dying in other ways.
Yeah, most of them are doing it to themselves.
And in fact, since 2014, there have been at least 11 deaths and disappearances of European tourists on the island of Koh Tao alone, many of which were under very, very suspicious circumstances, but were explained away by authorities as just unfortunate accidents or suicides.
It is a lot of paperwork.
To look into crimes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Suicide, so you can write those off pretty easily. Well, I'm still going to Thailand, but I'm not going anywhere near that island.
Oh, I think that is for the best. Absolutely go to Thailand. I hear the food, because like I said, I spent one night in Bangkok and I had delicious food. I would love to go back to Thailand, but I would probably stay in the north, purely because I'm too old to go to a full moon party.
The thought of a full moon party reviles me.
Yes, and I also assume the thought of me being at a full moon party would revile the people who were there.
Right, yeah, I think we are over the hill.
Yes. They would just look at us and start screaming.
Yeah, but no neon face paint for you, oldos.
It's just falling into all the wrinkles in your face. No, thank you.
No. I'm going to go and sit in my air-conditioned hotel and scoff at you.
Yes, please. Let's do that. So yeah, guys, that is the case of the murder of Hannah Witheridge and David Miller. Just classic police horseplay that we see the world over, unfortunately. Exactly. So yes, once again, if you would like some more Red-Handed, you can come follow us on patreon.com/redhanded, where you can sign up to get your hands, eyes, ears, every orifice of your body on a shit ton more content that we release on a weekly basis. You can also head on over to Spotify and listen to our brand new podcast all about, I'm going to say it, cults, called Sinister Society. So check that out now. There's already probably by the time you're listening to this 4 or 5 episodes up.
Yeah, we're Spotify exclusive bitches now.
Precisely. And just in case anyone's worried, it's not like us and a bunch of other people. It's just me and Hannah.
Yeah, it's literally almost exactly the same as Red-Handed, but just sort of laser focused on societies that are secret.
Precisely. So check that out. And here are some people who became patrons at some point last year. So thank you very much to Jenny Waters, Shannon Wheeler, Victoria Bishop, Joanna Figuel, Cheryl, Jessica, Savannah Cassidy, Christy Penhaligan, Nina Thornton, Amanda Garcia, Laura Thornley, Nora Heymanimi, sorry, Hannah Amaya, Cicely Reardon, Yen Santos, Monica Galacha? God, sorry. Megan Angus, Alice and Quill Huntley, who are apparently very keen for us to know that they are not husband and wife or wife and wife, but in fact siblings. And Claire Trahan, Rebecca Sanchez, Jessica Power, Angel Boncarrera, Emily Martin, Mary Foster, Jessie McPherson, Stella, Gabriel Eckensberger, Rachel Putman. Oh, do you know, I'll save this one to the duvet, but it's about burgers, and I found out a fun fact. I'll tell you about it later. Mandy Molson, Ella de Cresta Armstrong, Megan Tailford.
Tag Sally Housego, Elena Johnson, Jenny, Molly Byers, Gabriella Nogueres, Sophie Geffross possibly, Lauren Solomon, Kelsey Travis, Megan Spruce. Spruce moose is a tattoo that my cousin has, which I think is very funny. She just has a spruce moose on her leg. Taylor Robinson, Helen, Fraser Brooks Price, Liv Bradshaw, Ellery Barnes, Ashley Bellon, Lara Pennicott, Jenna LD, Claire Luby, Kelly Furlott, Amy Lowe, Annie M, Andrea, Laura Fenton, Ben Robinson, Bianca Bernhardt, Crystal Hope, Cheryl Wilson, Carrie Munchenberg, Maggie Pajak, Brendan Chadwick, Megan Guild, Shannon Mackenzie, Sarah, Gillian Del Duncan, Sarah Kamal maybe, whatever you've done, Sarah, you're in capitals, Abigail Jones, and Angela Benedict. Thank you ever so much for listening to our lovely little show, and we hope that you have a good day.
Goodbye.
Bye.